My father settled down with a compassionate ground posting as an army officer in Pune, and I was admitted in Southern Command Hospital. I was admitted for almost 2 years, and condition was fast deteriorating, and I was only restricted to a bed tied up in tubes. Just a 5-year-old, but the lovely stories from my textbooks, which were narrated by my parents, kept me going, and the values that followed with each chapter and each story that I heard. I remember reading of a chapter in class 6th, which was about the perfect 10 of Nadia Comaneci when she won a perfect 10 at the Montreal Olympic Games. As a young little girl who had recovered from her paralysis post a surgery and 2 years of rehabilitation, so almost after 4 years when I started going to school again, I was homeschooled during that time. And when I went back to school in my class 5th, 6th, I had this chapter. And I got so fascinated by that chapter that I would stand on the dining table and pretend I was doing the balancing beam and then put bangle in a ribbon and ask my mother to put it in my neck. As if now I have shown the gymnastics and now you give me a medal. And my father saw this passion of mine and he took me to see 1982 Asian Games opening ceremony at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. And even there, when I got back, somewhere that love for sports evolved. And thank God, it's only because of the education that I understood the value of sports or understood this kind of ambitions in life. I had language when I graduated from Sophia College, Ajmer. I did my English honors. And at that point of time, it was more a matrimonial qualification. Go to a convent college, understand, turn into a young lady, a good lady, and then get married. Of course, I did not marry even 34 years ago when I got married. I was pretty clear that I wanted to marry a guy who loved outdoors, who loved sports. My husband was one of the best sportsmen in the army those days. And he was a bike lover, he still is. And I laughed at my love for wheels and two-wheeler. So I had a love come arranged marriage where my love for bikes got my marriage arranged. So I was very clear that I'm going to follow my heart and my passion. But the tragedy struck again when my elder daughter, barely 14 months old, met with an accident. She had a road accident. She had a head injury and the left of her body got paralyzed as young as a 14-month-old. She had just started to walk and I was celebrating my childhood through her tiny footsteps, which also kind of came to a halt because she could not walk anymore. So much so that her intellectual abilities were also in doubt because the doctors didn't know how much impact that accident had on her brain cells. Only the time would tell. But in these 20 years, 22 years of a gap, where when I was a young child, a female daughter, a female child in the house who was in disability for 3 to 4 years. And then later, 20 years later, my own child was in disability, again a female girl child. And I understood that nothing changed in 2 decades when it came to perception of a female child in disability. And I wondered, where did the education system go? All the people around me are educated, and yet they end up saying, oh God, what is going to happen to them? Almighty should have actually taken away this girl and not let her live. How is she going to ever survive in this illness? And then I said that there is something missing in people's perception towards education. And after that, a few years later, we worked very hard. My second daughter was born. And when Devika was about 6.5, 7 years old, my younger daughter 3 years old, my tumors came back. And they came back with a vengeance, and the doctors gave me 7 days to celebrate walking, or perhaps for life, and they said, once we operate, the tumors can burst, the infection can spread, and you can either die, you may not survive, and even if you survive, your spinal cord will be cut, and you will not be able to walk ever again. A child already under treatment, and myself heading for paralysis, that is if I live. Sure enough, the surgeries happened, complications happened, and I was left with chest below paralysis, leaving almost 200 stitches between the shoulder blades, 3 repetitive surgeries for tumors, lot of chemotherapy and radiation followed. I don't have a torso balance, I don't have body temperature control, I can't raise both my arms together, only half my lungs inflate, I don't have bladder and bowel control, I have spastic paraplegia where I get spasms and stiffness in the body, and passively everything has to be moved. And in that also, I felt that people are going to talk about my courage. People will appreciate that, look at this young girl who's just 30 years old, already struggling with the illness of her child, and the child is also recovering from partial paralysis on the left side of the body, and here she is also paralyzed. But nobody was talking of solutions, and nobody was talking what can we do despite these disabilities. Rather, there were only doubts and stereotypical beliefs around disability which were imposed on us. And I again question, what happened to their education? Why is nobody talking positive? Why this kind of impressions around disability? And that's when I again remembered whatever my father always told me. Incidentally, I have a very Bengali name. I'm Deepa, and I think it's a very Bengali name. That's a bit of Bengal in me. And my father asked me, Deepa, don't get bogged down with the negativity. Go back to what you learned in the first 10 years of your education. What did each chapter you read, each inspirational story you read, all the science that you read, and that is why we sent you to school, to learn how to think positively, how to innovate ideas, how to continue to learn, and especially when your own name is Deepa. It is always better to light a lamp than to curse the darkness. And you can only light the lamp when you educate yourself, you upgrade your skills, when you learn new things. And he says, learning is the key to winning. And I started learning. I learned the new body. I learned how to cope with the disability that I've had to live in. I learned the new food that I had to eat, how to balance my diet, how much water to drink, how to do body management, how to manage my bowel, my bladder, my urine, infections, how to rehabilitate, how to exercise, how to transfer from bed to the wheelchair. It was all learning, and slowly I enrolled myself with a basic AppTech course in information technology and learned the use of internet, and then started researching what can I do. And once again, I felt that I feel a lot of connect with UK there, because sports became my medium and my tool to give out a statement of ability beyond disability. And incidentally, the para sports and the Paralympic sports evolved, emerged. They were first time held in manual as a manual sports. So thank you for initiating a sporting culture for persons with disability. It started with war veterans, and then here we are participating. And I felt that when I took to sports and when I learned a new skill, I was able to not just achieve a new identity for myself, I was also able to achieve fitness for myself, social integration, mental stability, mental well-being, and of course the pride that I could create certain world records. I started using my knowledge to acquire new skills, and then reaching out to people with the message of ability beyond disability. And I would really like you to play the 3 records video here to share how learning something new could help me become an achiever in my own right. Can I have the 3 records video to be played?
Now on to the story of a